In this video, I'm going to answer the question, why does God allow pain and suffering? To help you make sense of this world. So then, why does God allow pain and suffering? The problem of pain and suffering has long been a topic of discussion among religious scholars, philosophers, and theologians. It is a fundamental question that has puzzled humanity for centuries. Why does God allow pain and suffering in the world? The question is complex, and there is no simple answer. However, through the lenses of various religious traditions, it is possible to explore the different perspectives on this issue. In Christianity, the concept of suffering is an integral part of the faith. Christians believe that Jesus, the Son of God, suffered and died on the cross for the sins of humanity. This suffering, Christians believe, was necessary for the redemption of humanity. Thus, Christians believe that suffering can serve a purpose, and that it is not a meaningless experience. Moreover, Christians believe that suffering can help people grow spiritually. It can deepen one's faith, foster empathy and compassion, and strengthen one's relationship with God. Christians also believe that suffering can be a test of faith. Through suffering, Christians can demonstrate their faith in God and trust in His plan for their lives. In Islam, the concept of suffering is also seen as a test of faith. Muslims believe that Allah God is merciful and compassionate. They also believe that Allah tests people to strengthen their faith. Suffering is seen as a means of purifying one's soul and achieving a higher level of spiritual growth. Muslims believe that suffering can be a means of expiating one's sins and earning rewards in the afterlife. Moreover, Muslims believe that suffering can bring people closer to Allah. It can inspire people to turn to Allah for help and guidance. Muslims believe that suffering can be a reminder that life is temporary, and that one's ultimate goal should be to attain paradise in the afterlife. In Buddhism, the concept of suffering is at the heart of the religion. Buddhists believe that life is characterized by suffering dukkha, and that the ultimate goal of life is to achieve liberation from suffering nirvana. Buddhists believe that suffering arises from craving, attachment, and ignorance. Therefore, the way to end suffering is to eliminate these causes. Moreover, Buddhists believe that suffering can be a means of personal growth and transformation. Suffering can teach people important lessons about themselves and the world. It can inspire people to seek a deeper understanding of the nature of reality and the nature of the self. Buddhists also believe that suffering can be a means of developing compassion and empathy for others. In Hinduism, the concept of suffering is seen as a consequence of karma. Hindus believe that every action has a consequence, and that suffering is the result of negative karma from past actions. However, Hindus also believe that suffering can be a means of purifying one's karma and achieving spiritual growth. Moreover, Hindus believe that suffering can be a means of detachment from the material world. Suffering can inspire people to seek a higher level of consciousness and a deeper understanding of the nature of reality. Hindus also believe that suffering can be a means of surrendering to the divine will and accepting one's destiny. Despite the various perspectives on suffering across different religions, there are some common themes that emerge. One common theme is that suffering can serve a purpose. Suffering can be a means of personal growth, transformation, and spiritual development. Suffering can also be a test of faith and a means of demonstrating one's trust in God or the divine. Another common theme is that suffering is a natural part of life. No one is immune to suffering, and everyone will experience some form of suffering in their lives. Therefore, it is important to accept suffering as a natural part of life and to learn from it. Moreover, there is a recognition that suffering is not always caused by God or the divine. Suffering can be the result of natural disasters, human actions, or a combination of both. In some cases, suffering is the result of our own choices and actions. Therefore, it is important to take responsibility for our actions and to try to alleviate the suffering of others whenever possible. However, the question remains, why would a loving and compassionate God allow suffering to exist? There is no simple answer to this question. but there are several possible explanations. One possible explanation is that God allows suffering as a consequence of free will. In many religious traditions, humans are given free will to make their own choices and to determine their own destiny. However, with free will comes the potential for both good and evil. Humans can choose to act in ways that bring joy and happiness to others, or they can choose to act in ways that cause harm and suffering. Moreover, if God were to intervene every time someone made a bad choice or acted in a harmful way, then free will would be compromised. People would no longer be free to make their own choices, and the consequences of those choices would be diminished. Therefore, God may allow suffering as a consequence of free will, in order to preserve the integrity of human choice and the consequences of those choices. Another possible explanation is that suffering can lead to greater good. Although suffering is never pleasant or desirable, it can sometimes lead to positive outcomes. Suffering can inspire people to become more compassionate, empathetic, and caring towards others. It can also inspire people to take action to alleviate the suffering of others. Moreover, suffering can be a means of developing resilience and strength. People who have experienced suffering often develop a greater sense of inner strength and determination. They may become more resilient in the face of adversity and more capable of overcoming obstacles. Finally, it is possible that we simply cannot understand the reasons for suffering. God's ways are often mysterious and beyond human comprehension. We may not be able to understand why suffering exists or why it affects some people more than others. However, we can still have faith that God has a plan and that everything happens for a reason, even if we cannot fully understand that reason. In the end, the problem of pain and suffering is a complex and challenging issue. It is a question that has puzzled humanity for centuries, and there is no simple answer. However, through the lenses of various religious traditions, we can gain a deeper understanding of the nature of suffering and the ways in which it can serve a purpose in our lives. Ultimately, the way we respond to suffering is a reflection of our own character and values. We can choose to respond with bitterness, anger, and despair, or we can choose to respond with compassion, empathy, and determination. We can choose to become consumed by our own pain and suffering, or we can choose to use our experiences to make a positive difference in the world. Regardless of the reasons for suffering, we can find comfort and hope in the knowledge that we are not alone. We can draw strength from our faith and from the support of others who have experienced similar hardships. We can take solace in the belief that there is a higher power who loves us and who has a plan for our lives, even in the midst of our suffering. In the end, the problem of pain and suffering is not a question that can be fully answered by human intellect or reason. It is a mystery that is beyond our understanding. However, through faith, compassion, and a willingness to learn from our experiences, we can find meaning and purpose in even the most difficult circumstances. I hope you enjoyed this video answering the question, why does God allow pain and suffering? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this channel